Welcome back. Today we're going to clean up Dragon Sanctum. Last time we went pretty far down into the depths, but we're not quite done with the place. There's not a lot to do on elevators sometimes. Now you might be asking, oh my god, why does she have immolation equipped again? And I say to you, there is a really bad reason for it, but there is a reason. At any rate, to progress, we need to go through this way. We're going to take some falling damage here, so I want to equip the Jester's Tights. That should keep things to a minimum, if not negate it entirely. As one can see, the farther down we go, the worse and worse the repair of the Sanctum. This is a one-way trip if it weren't for things like homeward bones. In this part of the Sanctum, there's really only one enemy. Or one kind of enemy, I should say. There's plenty of them. These are the Drakeblood Knights, and they're a pain in the butt. They're quite strong. They do a lot of damage. They're more mobile than you might think. They do fat roll, but that doesn't mean they just don't use it anyway. And they're just really durable. They take a lot of hits and they have a lot of poise. Now, fortunately, they have some weaknesses. One, they can be blocked with a shield pretty much entirely. They do use guard breakers on occasion, so you shouldn't spam the shield. Just use it when you think you need it. They're also fairly vulnerable to parrying, guard breaks of their own, and backstabbing. They don't have very good turning speed. All that said, they are still very tough. You should not underestimate them. Now what's that I spy up there? Could those be crystal lizards? Now, I have thought of many different ways to try and get this room done effectively, and pretty much all of them have failed. Basically, what you want to do is turn the wheel so that there's a path out of the upper chamber, and then the lizards will all come flying out, and then you can use Chaos Storm, and then it won't do shit. I'm the best. Oh well, they respawn. I can just try it again later with something that actually works. Like the Great Club. That works. Usually. There's also this Sanctum Knight just chilling up there with a crossbow. You can completely neuter him by simply turning the wheel so that he has no clear shot. No kidding. For whatever reason, all of the chests in here have already been looted. And certainly not by us. I would have recorded that. I love treasure. Regret. The regret is for a reason. There's nothing actually over here. It's just something that you can get to if you want, and then leave a message to fool others into thinking that you can in fact do a thing over here. Getting back over again isn't hard. You just need to line yourself up with the bottom of those stairs and jump back across. You've got more than enough room to avoid rolling off the side if you do it right, so it's not a big deal if you do go over there. On the opposite side, there are things. Of particular note, there are more Drakeblood Knights. They're pretty good about lowering their shields when you're about to do a guard break, so if you are going to go for that strategy, then be quick about it. The key to fighting these guys is patience. So naturally, I'm not very good at it. They don't really have any particular strengths or weaknesses. They're just beefy human-type enemies that can give you trouble. Lightning does well just because, you know, it's lightning. It does well against most things. They're probably fairly resistant to fire because of the heavy armor. Magic is probably fine too, as well as dark. If only we had some. No, no wings for us. Just a finicky jump button. Now, this guy sort of chumped on because he put himself in a really bad position. You can only back up with a shield so much until you either run into a wall, or even worse, a pit. Here is a quite frankly diabolically hidden bonfire that you really want to hit. It's actually really rude that they didn't put that in, you know, a place that a normal person would look for it. Unless you either find some kind soul leaving a message, or you are habitually and obsessively mashing your face into every wall you find, then there's a good chance that you can go through this dire area without even knowing that thing exists. And that's a real pain. This is probably the most difficult fight in the area, because if you go too far out into the bottom room, there is another Drakeblood Knight waiting for you. And, you know, there's difficulties to be had on stairs. Spear is not very good at aiming downwards for whatever reason. So if you can get him up here, then you'll have a better time of it. If he actually, you know, decides that he wants to come up. Otherwise, a lot of the things you do will just sort of come right over his head. And that doesn't do anybody any good. Now, like I said, they will try for their own guard breaks, and they're not too bad at doing them. Descending more and more into the Sanctum. It's a pretty sad sight, but we do get a really good consolation prize, the Drakeblood armor. Now, for whatever reason, this armor is ridiculously good. It is almost uniformly better than the Huhmph armor, completely unupgraded. It's also lighter, and it looks really cool. It's the cape, I think. This game has great cape physics. Looking like a proper Black Knight now. If you make a beeline for this area fairly early in the game, this can set you for pretty much the entirety of it. There's not a lot of better armor to be had that isn't, you know, weighing a couple tons. Havel's will beat it defensively, of course, because that's what Havel's armor does, but it will also have you fat rolling until the cows come home. If that. You require a pretty hefty vitality investment just to be able to fat roll in Havel's. Lighter characters would simply not be able to roll at all. They do that weird stagger thing. Another nice thing about the Drakeblood armor is that it's upgradable by regular-ass Titanite. You don't need any twinklies. Which is sort of surprising, to be honest. That sequence of events offends me. There we go. That's better. There's quite a few valuables down here, so it's worth exploring, even if you don't really feel like dealing with these guys. Which is me all of the time. Never forget, a perfectly viable strategy is to simply run past things. It becomes all the more viable when your weapons start breaking. I should be able to finish this guy off with a stone sword. Though it's a bit of a hit losing the spear's stronger critical hit damage. I think that's part of the reason why I like spears so much in this game. You can get a lot of backstabs if you try, and they do a lot of backstab damage. Soul of a Brave Warrior and some more twinklies. With that, we've pretty much cleared the area out, though we're in no condition to fight any sort of boss. And as we can see from the summon signs down there, we're getting close. With that in mind, I decide to use a homeward bone to return a little bit to the bonfire that was hidden in the wall, and from there we can sort of reconvene. Now, I make ever so slightly a bit of an error here. I completely forget that instead of being weak to lightning, this boss is actually quite resistant to it. I think I got that messed up in my head at some point and did not recall until a few attempts afterwards. Spoilers, this takes me a little bit. So I decide to go in with the Dragon Slayer Spear instead of, you know, something that would do damage. I also decide to switch back to the Huhmph helm because, I don't know, it's a little more on brand. Looks pretty good with the armor, if you ask me. It'd be nice if you could dye things, that would be great. Then maybe cast some glamours. I will righteously deny that I want every game to be like Final Fantasy XIV. But I will not deny that I think that some games could perhaps benefit from it. Let's go with that. Now, of course, to even get to the boss, you have to fight through these two jokers. It's a great deal easier if you get a good backstab opportunity. Then sometimes they just start rolling away over and over again, and it's weird. And then sometimes you just hit the wall with the spear, and sometimes you really wish that that didn't happen and that actions were queued up a little bit differently, and it's just a bad scene. Fortunately, you know, we died basically 5 feet outside the bonfire room, so it's not like we have far to go, but it's the principle of the thing, and the principle chafes. I'm pretty sure that pretty quickly into my attempts here that I decide to just run past these guys. It's difficult to take them out quickly and safely. You can take them out quickly or you can take them out safely. Both at once is a little bit of a tall order. That didn't look like a backstab to me, but it's not like I'm going to argue. Pain in the ass game with stupid hitboxes. I guess that's why life gems exist. If you can get your backstabs on, then these guys aren't tough at all, but that can be difficult because the game doesn't always want to cooperate. Trading blows with them with your shield up and poking with the spear is another safe way to do it, but it's another slow way to do it. Jackass. I'm gonna need to repair my spear too. What a pain. Oh well. You can either jump or drop off that gap and you should be okay. You'll either land on the upper platform or the lower platform. From there, it's just a fairly simple number of drops down onto solid ground. This is technically a new area, Dragon's Rest. Steelheart Ellie is an obnoxious nerd. I want someone more trusty at my side. And who is more trusty than Ben Hart of the Inscrutable Travel Patterns? I would highly recommend taking somebody into this fight. Doing it solo can rapidly go sour. I would not say that about most fights, but for this one, it almost seems like it's designed around having somebody to help you. Let's get to it, then. Making a few preparations.
You are not deserving of the mire.
This is Alana, the Squalid Queen. She has a fairly unique attack pattern. She prefers casting spells to attacking, though as you can see from her rather large axe, she is not afraid of using it. She uses her own versions of Lingering Flame, Flame Swathe, as well as that Darkstorm attack. They're not too difficult to dodge on their own, but her main gimmick is that she summons buddies. The buddies are a bit of an issue. They're really your first priority to take out. Because if you don't, that will happen. The game does not give you very many good tools to dealing with multiple enemies in multiple spots. Several attempts later, I decided to go with something that actually works instead of the wrong elemental weakness, which in this case was an elemental strength. Alana is quite weak to fire. She's also fairly weak to magic. By putting some charcoal resin on our Helix Halberd, we should be able to do some pretty significant damage to her health bar. She likes to teleport around, and a lot of her attacks are variations of Dark Orb. They tend to come out pretty quickly and in several different variations. Some is the spread shot, some is the sort of rapid fire. And this is far and away her most obnoxious move. She has 3 different kinds of enemies she can summon. She can either summon 3 skeletons, 3 pigs, or Shit-Vistalt. Far and away the most dangerous of this configuration is Shit-Vistalt because he has a ton of health and he does a lot of damage. This is why you want a friend. Regardless of how the fight goes, if this happens, then you need somebody to help run interference with one of them. If you have 2 people, I would recommend taking out Vistalt. Doing enough damage to the Queen to kill her while he is still alive is a pretty tall order, to be honest. This is not an easy fight. This is a really hard fight, and I don't think for the right reasons. She can also use her own version of Affinity, which is the sort of homing soul mass of the Hex family. It hurts a bit, so roll. Now, this is what really makes the fight obnoxious. Not like half a minute after we kill the first one, she simply she simply summons another. At this point, I have to disregard my own advice and try to blitz down the Queen simply so that I don't die. Or Benhart dies. Poor guy is not looking too great. The fight got down to the wire, but we were victorious in the end. Thanks in no small part to Benhart taking so much damage for me. Let nobody say he's not helpful. The Squalid Queen fight can be a real roadblock. It is not easy, especially if you get unlucky with her summon patterns. Defeating her opens up this path. With direct access to a mercifully nearby bonfire. We will discover what's beyond that fog door next time. And I can tell you it's not going to be pretty. Until then,